Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
Today, we're going to talk about something called stereotype threat. Now, last time we talked about the idea of the stereotype, having preconceived notions about people before you actually meet them. Certain people are lazy or, Chinese people are good at math and stuff like that. Those are stereotypes. But we also started to touch on this concept of stereotype threat. Okay, so that basically means that if you feel people have this stereotype against you, then that will affect your performance and it will probably make you perform worse.
Yeah, the good example, there was a really great example in the article about Fiona. She's a star soccer player on her team. But when she played with the boys, she underperformed because there's a stereotype that girls don't play as well as guys. And she let that really get to her or hang over her head, and she just didn't perform as well. She was worried about not performing as well as the guys, and that's exactly what happened. So don't fall prey or don't be a victim to stereotype threat. Try to keep it out of your mind and do the best you can. Who cares about stereotypes? Day 2, we're going to continue talking about research in this particular area, this field. We're going to look at some research by Claude Steele and Joshua Aronson. So stay tuned. We're going to read through today's lesson and then we'll be back.
One study on stereotype threat, conducted by researchers Claude Steele and Joshua Aronson, observed how differently black and white students performed on a language test. Some of the students were asked to disclose their race before the test. The black students who experienced this threat scored significantly lower than the white students. Meanwhile, the test scores of the black and white students who weren't asked to disclose their race showed no statistical difference. The results of a study on young female chess players were similar. Researchers compared the performances of young female chess players against their male counterparts after evoking the threat that girls couldn't be as successful at chess as boys. Their study exhibited that after exposure to the stereotype threat, the girls' chess performances declined when they were paired up against moderate to strong male opponents. What, therefore, can be done to mitigate stereotype threats' harmful effects? Some researchers contend that self-affirmation is the key. We all want to believe that we're good, capable people. Since stereotype threat endangers our capacity to believe this, we should remind ourselves of our positive attributes elsewhere. Let's return to our soccer star, Fiona. One day before playing soccer with her male friends, Fiona returns a stranger's lost wallet. Research suggests that if Fiona concentrates on this respectable act before her game, she's less likely to play worse than her male friends. By affirming her self-worth rather than diminishing it, Fiona has rendered the threat harmless. Teachers also play a part in combating stereotype threat in their classrooms. They can address it directly and turn it into an educational opportunity to help students think critically about the world. They can also create a supportive environment where no student feels judged because of their race, gender, or upbringing.
Let's go ahead and look at the first sentence here in the first paragraph, guys. One study on stereotype threat was conducted by researchers Claude Steele and Joshua Aronson, and they observed how differently black and white students performed on a language test. So here was the research that was performed. Some of the students were asked to disclose their race before the test. If you disclose something, it means you reveal something that wasn't known before. Maybe it was secret. You're not supposed to disclose your passwords to your bank accounts or maybe your passwords for some of your online memberships on certain websites. Don't disclose it. Keep it secret. Keep it safe so that nobody else knows. Well, some of the students were asked to disclose their race before the test. I'm not sure why that would even matter on a test, but they were asked to do that. But it didn't really help the black students taking the test at all. It actually hurt them because they saw that as a stereotype threat.
Okay, so perhaps before the test was administered, they had to fill out some kind of form, and one of the questions asked them what their race was. Are you black? Are you white? Are you Hispanic? Are you a Pacific Islander or whatever? So they needed to reveal or let people know what their race was before they took the test. And the black students who experienced this threat scored significantly lower than the white students. So basically, if the black students were asked to reveal their race, that affected their performance on the test, and they scored much lower than the white students did because I guess they felt this concept of stereotype threat.
That's right. Now, meanwhile, or at the same time, the test scores of the black and white students who weren't asked to disclose their race showed no statistical difference. So they actually did better if they were not asked to reveal their race at all. I don't think race should matter at all, so I'm surprised that they were asked to. Maybe that was part of the research, though, right? Part of the research that the scientists were trying to conduct. Now, moving on, it says the results of a study on young female chess players were similar. Notice that the verb were is actually conjugated for the results. So we're talking about the results were similar. Let's look at this for a minute. It says researchers compared the performances of young female chess players against their male counterparts after evoking the threat that girls couldn't be as successful at chess as boys. There's some games that there are just stereotypes out there that have been around forever saying, oh, guys are better at this than girls, or girls are better at this than guys. This is one of them. I'm not interested in chess, so I don't care about the stereotype. But for this group of women or girls that were playing, it would have been important to them. Let's talk about what this word counterpart means. If you see this word counterpart, guys, it just means the person or the thing that you're talking about that's holding position or performing some sort of function. Here, of course, they're both chess players. That's what they're doing. It just means they're at the same level. They're doing the same sort of function. They're doing the same sort of thing. Tom is my counterpart at AMC. He works with me to record the articles and explain them to our listeners. He's my counterpart.
Or I could say, for example, the Japanese Prime Minister had a meeting with his French counterpart. In other words, the Japanese Prime Minister had a meeting with the French Prime Minister. You get the idea. So here, of course, the female chess players are playing against male chess players. And here, of course, we've got the word evoke, which we touched on a little bit here, but to evoke just kind of means to remind you of something, to make you think about that sort of thing. Like my last trip to Yunlin, for example, evoked memories of my childhood because that place in Taiwan is very similar to where I grew up. It evoked memories. It brought them to mind.
Or some wonderful fragrances or scents will evoke past memories. You'll smell a particular scent and you'll immediately think about a memory, perhaps where you had that same smell. Yeah, perfumes and cologne sometimes will evoke certain feelings inside me, or maybe even music. Music can evoke different feelings inside you. So it arouses those things, or it brings to your mind past experiences, or it helps you recall things. So it evoked the threat that girls couldn't be as successful at chess as boys just by being in this situation. So their study exhibited or showed that after exposure to the stereotype threat, the girls' chess performances declined when paired up against moderate to strong male opponents. So it really did impact them. They let that stereotype threat hang over their heads. Remember, we talked about that phrase in day 1. Now, it says here exposure is one of our vocabulary words. Exposure is a noun, and it's similar to the verb, of course, to expose. If you're exposed to something, it just means you come in contact with something. Or maybe you are exposed to bad weather. So you're outside, it starts to rain, you don't have a coat on. You're exposed to cooler temperatures, which could lead to you getting sick. So it could mean that you're just, you're out there, you're not covered or protected, you're exposed. Exposure, again, is the noun form, though.
They were exposed to the stereotype. Yeah, girls can't possibly be as good at chess as boys are. So because the girls were exposed to that stereotype, then the girls' performances declined. They probably believed what they were told, and this is when they were paired up against moderate to strong male opponents. Okay, moderate just means of a middle level. They're not beginners, they're not experts, but they're moderate here. Sometimes you describe people as being politically moderate. They might be kind of halfway between left and right. And then here we've got opponent. That, of course, is the person you are playing against, especially in a game of chess or a one-on-one kind of competition. Well, that brings us to the midway point in today's lesson. Let's take a break now and listen to our Chinese teacher.
大家好，我是 Patrick 老师。在第一天课程里，课文解释了何谓 stereotype threat，以及社会大众对某个群体形成了刻板印象，而群体中的个人因为担心自己的表现会强化大众既定的负面印象，所以反而无法发挥正常的实力。课文进一步的以虚构的女性足球员为例，说明成见威胁造成的危害。而第二天课文则分别以2个学术研究佐证。第一个，在第一段Steele and Aronson 的研究发现，在语言测验中，把黑人学生分配到2个不同的组别，其中一组在受测前需要注明自己的肤色、种族，另一组则不需要。需要注明种族的黑人表现的比同组白人学生差得多。相较之下，不需要注明的那一组，2个种族之间的表现差异在统计上并不显著。文章作者在第二段引用了另外一个研究证明成见威胁的危害。研究对象是西洋棋女棋士，一旦接触到西洋棋赛局中的性别刻板印象，女性选手就无法好好表现。好，我们看一下第二段有个英文学习重点，请看到第2句，从 researchers compared 开始，老师要讲解一个句型和一个单字，分别是副词子句的省略以及单字 evoke。 先看到副词子句省略，副词子句怎么省略？带着大家一步步做。老师在这里想请问大家，这个句子比较长，是否可以看出 evoking the threat 引发西洋棋女棋士意识到成见威胁的到底是谁？是 their male counterparts 吗？好，老师又公布正确答案了，应该是 researchers 研究人员。正确理解省略的副词子句非常重要，能够正确解读，同学在作答阅读测验时才不会选错选项。再来，我们看到 evoke 这个单字，引发、引起的意思，是由 e 这个字首加上 voke 或有时候是 voc 这个字根而形成的单字。这个字根在拉丁文当中表示 to call 召唤，而字首 e 相当于 ex 表示 out of， 字首还有字根合起来表示召唤出。怎么用呢？ evoke 这个单字，比方说 My dad would sing along whenever this song was played on the radio. Hearing it again evoked my memory of him. 每次电台播放这首歌的时候，我爸爸就会跟着哼唱。再度听到这首歌，让我想起了爸爸。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, let's continue with our lesson. Again, we're talking about stereotype threat. We've mentioned a couple of examples here. If Fiona believes that she's not as good a soccer player as her male counterparts, then she's not going to play as well. And if we get a female chess player competing against male chess players, she'll do well if she is not exposed to the threat, or exposed to the stereotype. If she is told that girls are not as good at chess as boys are, then her performance will decline, especially if she has to compete against moderate to strong male opponents. So here we've got this question here. This does seem to be a bit of a problem. What, therefore, can be done to mitigate stereotype threats' harmful effects? This is kind of a tricky word here, mitigate here. It just means to lessen, to make something less severe.
Less severe, less painful, less serious. Mitigate. We'll often talk about mitigating damage, making the damage a little less than it would have been otherwise. So here's the question. What, therefore, can be done to mitigate stereotype threats' harmful effects? Because it does seem to actually affect the people that are exposed or come into contact with that stereotype threat. It gets into their heads. I would say that it psychs them out. That's another phrase we use when you let your mind and your thoughts really affect your performance, which you should never do. You got to get to be mentally tough in this world. So some researchers say or contend, they argue that self-affirmation is the key. Telling yourself, no, I'm good at this. I'm great at this. I'm the best soccer player on my team. Oh, I can handle those guys. That's what you need to start doing. We all want to believe that we're good, capable people. Since stereotype threat endangers our capacity to believe this, we should remind ourselves of our positive attributes elsewhere. Your positive attributes are things about you that are great, your positive traits. Oh, I'm smart, I'm kind, I'm honest. Those are great positive attributes or traits that you have that make you into a great person. Sometimes you do have to remind yourself of those things if you're feeling just not as confident that day or you're coming into contact with this thing called stereotype threat.
Right. Stereotypes, of course, are always going to be there. We can't expect the government to create laws to punish people if they have stereotypes against you. So you're kind of on your own here. So that's why we're saying self-affirmation is the key. Believe in yourself and have good self-esteem. And yes, it will, these stereotypes will threaten your belief in yourself, but you need to remind yourself of your positive attributes that you have in another place, okay? As you said, attributes just means qualities or traits, your tendencies or aspects of your personality. So let's talk about Fiona here. Let's return to our soccer star, Fiona. One day, before playing soccer with her male friends, Fiona returns a stranger's lost wallet, okay? So this does happen sometimes. People lose things, and we do a good deed, and we return that item to its rightful owner, okay? Sometimes we find a wallet on the street, and we think, oh, finders, keepers, losers, weepers, okay? It's mine, okay? I'm not going to give it back. But no, this person is honest here, and this is a good trait that she has. I'm going to give this wallet back to its rightful owner. I'm not going to keep it for myself.
Now, research suggests that if Fiona concentrates on this respectable act before her game, she's less likely to play worse than her male friends. If something's respectable, it means it's regarded as being morally good or proper or correct. So if someone's doing something respectable, it's something that you can admire. So she needs to concentrate on things about herself that she can feel proud of. I think that's a key here. If you do that, You probably aren't going to let some of those stereotype threats affect your mental toughness, I would say. By affirming her self-worth rather than diminishing it, Fiona has rendered the threat harmless. Good for Fiona. To affirm just means to restate something that's very positive. So you want to do that. You want to say something very strongly. Sometimes you just have to tell yourself. Self-affirmation makes me remember Saturday Night Live, an American TV show, where there was a character that would look in a mirror. And he would say, you're beautiful, you're smart, and the world loves you. So that was self-affirmation. He would tell himself these things. It was kind of fun. And that's what you're doing. You're trying to build up your own self-confidence rather than saying, oh, I'm stupid, I'm no good, nobody likes me. That would be diminishing your self-worth, and that is not positive. You shouldn't be doing that.
Okay, so yes, Fiona concentrates on that respectable act before her game, and she'll play better, and she affirms her self-worth rather than diminishing it. Rather than making herself feel bad, she actually feels good about herself in other areas, and she has rendered the threat harmless. So here we've got the verb to render, which means it has made the threat harmless. It has caused it to be less of a threat. It's harmless now, and she can enjoy playing with the guys on the soccer pitch, and she won't really care too much about how well she performs.
Now, teachers also play a part in combating stereotype threat in their classrooms. They can talk about it by addressing it directly and then turn it into an educational opportunity to help students think critically about the world. It's good to know that it's out there and it's something you have to deal with as an adult in this world. They can also create a supportive environment where no student feels judged just because of their race, gender, or upbringing, how they were raised. Yeah, we need to treat each other equally and be kind to each other. That's the most important thing here. And stop trying to put people into groups. We're all individuals. We all think and feel differently. And we all have wonderful qualities about ourselves that we need to be sharing with others. So I think this is a good reminder about trying to build people up rather than tear them down.
Right, so we're saying that teachers can play a part in this. We're not demanding that teachers do this, but as teachers, you should probably try to remember this, that stereotypes can hurt people, and of course, you want your students to perform well on the tests. If they don't perform well on the tests, hey, that can make you look like a bad teacher. So, of course, you want your students to perform well. So, yeah, combat those stereotypes in the classrooms. Let those students know that, yeah, maybe they're not so good in math or science, but they are good at other things, and that probably will help them improve their performance on examinations. Okay, so this can also help them think critically about the world. They can have a broader perspective on things, and yeah, they'll probably become outstanding members of society. So remember, these are stereotypes that we all have, of course, and we're going to continue to have them. They're not going to go away. They're going to be there, so we have to deal with them. But, of course, we need to have self-affirmation, and teachers have a role to play as well. Okay, no student wants to feel judged because of stereotypes based on race or gender or age or background or whatever their upbringing. These are all things that sometimes people feel inferior about, but hey, we should all be proud of what we are.
We sure should be. Right now, someone is going to help us a little bit more with this particular unit. Is our Chinese teacher? Let's listen now and then we'll be back.
好的，同学，我们接下来看剩下的这3段。在前面2段，文章作者引用学术研究，跟我们说明到底成见威胁对个人是否会真的造成危害。我们发现，不论是在语言测验当中，或者是在西洋棋的赛局当中，一旦受试者意识到自己的群体在社会大众的心中是有刻板印象的，他们会害怕自己的表现不好，反而强化了社会大众对他们的刻板印象。 而后面3段则是告诉我们，面对成见威胁，应该要怎么解决。第3段告诉我们，方法就是要自我肯定 self-affirmation， 而第4段则是告诉我们，以前面的女足球员为例，她可以怎么做？她可以肯定自己是一个诚实的人，在路上捡到钱包，拾金不昧，还给原本的钱包的所有人。而最后一段则是告诉我们，老师其实也可以协助学生解除这样子的成见威胁。好，我们看一下这3段里面有什么英文学习重点。首先，请同学特别注意第3段 contain 这个动词，在第2句 contain 在这里表示声称、主張，跟 maintain maintain 是同义。还有另外一个同义词是 assert assert。 好，接下来第4段，请同学看到最后一句 by affirming her self-worth rather than diminishing it。 请同学特别注意到 by 后面加动名词，借由肯定自我价值，而不是削弱自己的自我价值。好，请同学特别注意到 by 加上动名词借由什么方式。最后我们看到最后一段，要处理这样子的威胁，动词我们要用什么呢？请看第2句 They can address it。 这里的 they 指的是老师，老师可以直接的处理这样的威胁。 They can address it， 这里 it 代替的就是 stereotype threat。 请同学特别注意，动词我们用 address 处理。好，第2天的中文讲解就到此结束，谢谢大家，拜拜。
That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and please join us again for another edition of our program. We look forward to seeing you then. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.